Monday night, 7 p.m., 3D Politics. I'm your fine host, Tommy McKay. You can catch me at Tommy McKay on Facebook and Twitter. As always, I've got the two finest Davids known in Oklahoma, David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and, of course, David Oldham from ConstitutionalGrounds.com. And we've got a packed show tonight. We've got to move quickly, and here they are. East Coast update with David Oldham, who's coming to us from the East Coast tonight. Is that correct, David?
Pretty close to the East Coast. I mean,
you're out there east. You're not with us in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma City may host a Republican convention in August. We've got some interesting news about that. The most exciting news we have tonight is Ken Reddick, a candidate for Tulsa mayor, is going to join us with the Zoom meeting. I cannot wait to encourage him in his candidacy to update our community into a top 10 city. And then, of course, the woke beta male uprising. It's always scary when the beta males rise. And then, isn't it amazing? The pandemic narrative has been forgotten. Everybody needs a mask who doesn't need a mask, and now they don't need a mask at all. Buffalo cops versus an old man, and that did not go well for the old man. Issues with them resigning as well. And then, of course, the big news all over the nation, Minneapolis Council votes to end the police department. So, gentlemen, that is the setup for tonight. I cannot wait for Reddick to get here to just find out what he's all about. I'm excited that he's offering himself for service. What do you guys have this week before we start?
Ken Reddick may be Ken Reddick, but I knew the Tom McKay when he was the conservative candidate 4 years ago.
I got some.
Right. That's when we met, wasn't it, Tom?
We met. That's correct.
At the Republican Women's Club.
That's correct. Yep. And so we're fixing this world one election at a time.
So what the story for Ken is, his life will never be the same.
Well, it already hasn't been, because his family was threatened, has been threatened already. And there was talk that he was going to get out, and then he's back in, but now he's in for good, and he's so good to hear. Let's do something to change the politics in Tulsa and actually start make it constitutional. That would be awesome.
Yeah, one of the things I want to bring up with him, because one of his desires that he's spoken is to be interviewed and literally debate Bynum on the Pat Campbell show. And I was denied the opportunity to talk on the Pat Campbell show because I had a horrible attitude, according to Pat, who has a fine attitude. But when I was not allowed to go on the show, that robbed the community. That didn't hurt me. That robbed the community of them being able to analyze my ideas. I wasn't just a protest candidate because I was mad at Dewey Bartlett Jr. I had ideas about municipal, cyclical municipal.
Yeah, well, you may not have just been a protest candidate for Dewey, but you also you were a protest candidate against GT as well. So
well, they had identical platforms.
Right.
It was just uncle handing the baton off to cousin, little nephew, I mean. But anyway, that's going to be interesting. But the main reason I bring that up is not to lament like I do so well, but that Ken Reddick, regardless of his attitude or his positions, he should be engaged by the Pat Campbell show, not because Pat Campbell gets to decide who's on his show or not, but because Pat Campbell owes it to the community airwaves. And we all co-own those community airwaves, right? And so he owes it to the community to add these discussions into the mayor's race. And remember, it was just last week I was praising GT for his movement on the PD Live. That was a brilliant move on his part. And they said he caved. And I said, no, he didn't. He wants to provide the body cam footage in a different format.
Well, and you know what? I would say that if Pat Campbell won't provide the forum or any other of the supposedly legitimized media, then perhaps they could come on and 3D Politics could be the forum that hosts these kinds of events, because David and I are already used to hosting these kinds of things. David was the brainchild behind a lot of it, but we put him on as when we ran the Tulsa area Republican Assembly and got the other groups involved. We could do the same thing, because I am fully invested in promotion of alternative media. I mean, the things that we're not even going to talk about this week that came down the end of last week from alternative media, citizen media, was awesome, because they were exposing, and I'm just going to say that in the generic, alternate media.
Right.
Sure.
We're exposing things that no one else was. And so it was OTU, Adrian Otap, had great exposés that need to get out for the rest of the community. And I'm hoping more people will start tuning into places like this, where they can get a different perspective than is being provided by the big names.
So we've got Ken Reddick in the waiting room, and my suggestion, gentlemen, despite our pre-show meeting, let's bring him in. We've already kind of been hammering the mayor's race, and if you're ready, let's just bring him in.
Let me go ahead and step out, and he can come on into my slot. There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ken Reddick, Tulsa candidate for mayor. Ken, thanks for joining us. It's a great opportunity to meet you. I appreciate you and your service for running regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
It always presses the philosophies of self-governance to have a new, fresh voice in. So thanks for joining us on 3D.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You bet. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you got involved in politics, and what the main issue is that you're pressing.
So a little backstory on me is I'm born and raised in Tulsa. I'm from East Tulsa. Finished high school down in Allen, Texas, moved back up here, finished school, worked for PSO, went to a trade school, went to college. Then I went on to work for the University of Tulsa, finished up my project management certification, got a couple degrees along the way, a couple certifications. And about a year and a half ago, I decided to start my own contracting business.
Okay.
So
and that's the fencing and roofing business, is that correct?
That's correct. Tulsa Fencing and Roofing Company.
Tulsa Fencing and Roofing. Okay, excellent.
All right.
And so now, what turned you into politics? What got you all fired up to decide to make policy?
So I'm a proud conservative Tulsan, and I am a traditional American, and I didn't see my values represented at City Hall. So there's just a huge lack of leadership there. About 2 years ago, Mayor Bynum reached out to me and asked me to be his appointee for the Sales Tax Overview Committee. And that's when it became very obvious to me that there's a huge lack in fiscal leadership and responsibility in the city.
Wait a minute. Are you saying he was trying to buy you off, or maybe those are my terms?
That is not what he said. You got to keep these guys in check all the time.
But Ken, you didn't join the Hooray for Bynum team. Instead, Bynum is getting more of a critic, right?
That's correct. So it exposed him for the globalist rhino that I always heard that he was, but I never had any firsthand knowledge. After meeting with him a number of times and seeing exactly what that committee was about, I knew things really had to change, and the only way I was going to make a change was to challenge the establishment and maybe influence the conversation at the very least.
One of the things that you're up against that I ran into is the nonpartisan concept of our election.
Correct.
So GT gets to run around here like a purple nonpartisan. Then when he wins, he goes and does a TED Talk pretending to be a Republican mayor in a red state. It's like, well, that's not it at all. And so I'm glad to see you here to set some stuff straight.
Yeah, I'm the litmus test, and he's failed.
So what would be, one of the things that I suffered was people said, you have no experience in government, and we can see how Trump is doing. In my opinion, he's doing a great job, and he didn't have any experience either. But what I found out later, kind of in hindsight, is what they fear from a new guy is not so much his lack of experience, but the power of appointee. That is, there's about 48 or 60 trusts and groups that that you get to appoint people to, either chairmans or otherwise. And so it's not so much what does the new mayor know and what experience does he have that they fear. They fear who you will appoint to the task committees and such.
which changes the agenda of the entire city. So if we can appoint people with the same values as your normal Tulsan, your normal small business owner, your normal parent that's got concerns and wants to be involved and wants to contribute to the city, then we can change the outcome of Tulsa completely. We can build better partnerships. We can have safer neighborhoods. I mean, we're not beholden to anyone. So we go in there and we actually do what's best. We implement our normal practices, things we've learned along the way to be successful in our own careers. So not to be a career politician or to come from a family of career politicians, I think is a good thing.
Hey, let me reset this. If you're just joining us, we've got Ken Reddick, a Tulsa mayor candidate here this year. And I've also, of course, got my two Davids with me, David Vann and David Oldham, here to press Ken about all the issues here in Tulsa. Ken, what is the number one policy, either change or direction you'd want to do? If you got in, what's, the day one routine? What's that?
So I think we need to work, especially with the current atmosphere, with the riots and, the shutting down of small businesses. We need to have a better working relationship between City Hall and the public. So I would like to implement the policy that was created in the urban areas of Indianapolis. It was called the 10-Point Coalition. I would like to create a cabinet position. We send someone to Indianapolis for so many weeks. We bring them back, and that person is fully trained with the successful practices of that organization. And right. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Their crime rates are down drastically.
And this is their crime rates. And where are the crime rates down?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Okay.
So in the urban areas of Indianapolis. So okay. That being said, we would have a trained cabinet position that would reach out to the churches, the small businesses, the schools, the PTAs, the HOAs, everything, the small business owners, and he would just, his only goal would be to build a common ground between all the institutions of the city of Tulsa. That would be day one. I think the most important thing to me is also to send a message that Tulsa cares for its hardworking families. And I think I would immediately move towards whatever it took to remove the sales tax on groceries in the city of Tulsa. The city's portion of a sales tax on groceries in the city of Tulsa, which would be roughly about 3.6%, 3.6 cents on the dollar. So I think that would send a huge message. It would also, drive interest for people to come shop in Tulsa, for families to do their shopping in Tulsa. It would be a huge driver. It'd be a huge economic driver. And I think if you implemented those two policy agendas, I mean, we would make huge strides towards our common goals.
And GT pushed the Vision 2025 package back right before the mayor's race, and that package that he and his uncle promoted will bring us a 62.5% tax increase in city sales tax in Tulsa coming up in 2021, July 1st. Right. Sales tax will explode by 62.5%, and this is something that GT brought us. Before he was even elected, he promoted with his uncle to raise taxes. And so also he promoted the gathering place, which we can't gather at any, which was a bad investment. Even if you couldn't foresee the pandemic, I've been saying for years, socialism is a bad investment. And this proves that out. Same thing with mass transit. We got all these cute little out of place aero buses that don't really fit. And you can only put 12 people on a bus. That was another bad investment. Right. By GT. More of this, he continues to want to combine. He wants to have privately owned entities that are controlled by government. The zoo, the BOK, the PAC, which we paid $1 million for planning for the Vision 2025 package. Oh, that's not. We don't even own that as citizens anymore. That's sold to a trust. And so, I mean, he has just sold the whole package out from underneath.
Oh yeah.
And
you're absolutely right.
Guy you ever want to meet? I told him he's the nicest fascist I ever knew.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He's a nice guy. I had a recent post on my Facebook page, and I said he's a great guy, but he's a terrible mayor.
He's a very friendly fella.
So
yeah, absolutely.
My concerns always are spending. I mean, we talk about taxation a lot, but
Mhm.
the real problem is the spending. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. We have
What
no
would
conservative values. I mean, when this whole crisis hit, I think the rainy day fund only had $6 million in it, and Tulsa collects roughly $900 million every year. I mean, that's terrible. We should have a better savings plan. We should be a lot more conservative with our dollars.
what would be some of the programs that you would want to see scaled back or cut so that we could get in, become more conservative, as you put it?
So I think we need an audit. To be honest with you, we need to bring in a third party. We need to run an audit. We need to see where the waste is at. To say that, never being in office and not creating the budget, to say that I think, to just do a penny plan or to say we just need to slash it immediately, I think would be naive. Also, the city of Tulsa is one of the largest employers in the entire area. So with just over 3,000, almost 4,000 employees. So I think a city audit would do us a lot of good. There obviously is a lot of waste. I mean, if you look at all the bureaucratic positions we have, I know for a fact that, people such as Anna America, the head of parks, isn't a conservative or fiscally minded. So that being said, I mean, we should probably just run an audit, and then we should have a more aggressive plan for saving. But if we also have a plan that generates and sells Tulsa and drives people to come to Tulsa, if we're going to have a sales tax model for our funding, we need to drive those dollars. So I think we need a two-part plan. We need to be more efficient, more conservative with our dollars, have a better savings plan, but also look to ways that actually drive people to want to shop in Tulsa, spend their money in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Man, what do you got?
Yeah, Ken, I remember in the early 90s, Roger Randall started this thing called the Mayor's Action Center. And you could just simply call up a 7-digit phone number back in those days, and bam, you got somebody from the mayor's office and you got an answer. And now it's push this, then wait for that, and then hear a little bit of Espanol, and then, it's nuts. And if that's a indicator of how big our bureaucracy is, it's right. Sad. But here's the thing, I'm really disappointed. Last Thursday night, I had to call 911. Somebody who was reached out to me who was suicidal, and I had to get him somebody after talking to him on the phone for a while, and I just couldn't get him to tell me where he was. Well, my God, 8 minutes while somebody's suicidal, just waiting for the right department to answer so you can tell them whether you need police, fire, or medical.
Right.
This really? Is a problem.
Emergency took you that long?
Yes. So, I'm looking at these things that when we first started them were fantastic, just like all the great swimming pools we had all over America's most livable cities back in the 70s, and now they're all filled in. Things start out good, and then the bureaucracy takes over. I'm wondering, what would 4 years of a Reddick administration look like? What were the things you'd like to see most changed from just 4 years of serving as mayor?
I think we need to build better partnerships with the entire county. We need to share services. We need to have better land leasing policies. We have no agricultural leasing policies whatsoever. There's just a lot of wasted land, a lot of wasted functions, a lot of lost dollars. We need better partnerships with our our sister cities, our neighboring cities. So if we could share services, maybe, like 911 services or fire or medical, maybe we need to just streamline services on that, in that field. So to be honest with you, Tulsa is just really inefficient. We try to stand alone. We try to do everything different, and you lose a lot of dollars that way. We don't have a lot of partnerships with the cities around us. We're really inefficient. We're not contractor friendly. We're not small business friendly. There's regulations that hurt small businesses, and then the ones that help the people that like to rip off the small business. There's no watchdog service. I mean, we've got this huge bureaucratic system that's really doing nothing but serving itself. So if we had a more policy or citizen driven, stakeholder driven agenda coming from City Hall, I think it would serve Tulsa a lot better.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ken, were you tuned in at all to the meeting that Mayor Bynum had with the hashtag Can't Breathe people? Did you see?
No,
footage?
I saw highlights from it. Yeah.
You know, I was, of course, an opponent, you know, exactly, and then have been a critic since of Mayor Bynum. But I took a 180-degree turn when I watched him handle the pressure point of the racist comments, et cetera, and all the racism. And I was impressed with his ability to negotiate what he called he says, within about a half hour, he says, here is a consensus statement I can agree with. And this is during racial tension, high pressure stuff. I was very impressed with the man who didn't allow the meeting to go on and exacerbate the heat. He said, look, here's something I think we all can agree on, because I know I can agree on it. The people, the hashtag Can't Breathe people, their problem is the advertising driven pressure driven, it pushes people to sign waivers under duress for advertising dollars, and they don't like that. Mayor Bynum wants transparency with the police department, and Regina Goodwin, she wants body cams going 24/7, even when they go home. So So the point is, Bynum made a good move, in my opinion, by saying, look, here's what I can agree to. No more live PD, because that removes the financial advertising from it, but we'll still maintain transparency by finding a way in the next 2 weeks to get the footage of transparency through body cams on YouTube. It was a perfect, my opponent made a better move than I could have. I thought he did better than I could have in that pressurized racial situation. So, I mean, how do you feel about that move on the Tulsa PD, live PD, all that other?
So, honestly, at first I thought it gave Tulsa a bad name, and it stemmed from, long story short,
You mean the live PD gave Tulsa a bad name? Correct.
I think there are too many shows that showed that capitalized on the crime in the Tulsa area. You had Live PD, the First 48. If you were outside of Tulsa and you never visited Tulsa, you thought there's a lot of shows being broadcast from Tulsa on a national scale. You know, there must be a lot of crime in Tulsa. And I first received that opinion from the outside looking in when we went to a comedy show at the Hard Rock. And his joke, and I mean, he was taking that joke nationwide, was, you know, the cities on Tulsa, or the cities on those shows, and then he mentioned Tulsa by name, do not visit, you know, those towns, you know, do not visit those cities. And I thought, wow, it really is giving us a bad name on the outside looking in. So at first I thought, I don't think it's in the city's best interest, especially, okay, so if a show exists and they just choose to come here as a free company, just exercising their right, and then the Tulsa Police Department makes a deal to let them travel around and record with them, that's one thing. But for a mayor to represent a city and then to sign a contract to sell that city, you know, its citizens, in their worst moments, you know, experiencing the worst things that's probably going to happen in their life, I thought was a bad thing. I had a couple people reach out to me. They're associated with the FOP, and the police viewed it differently. They viewed it as transparency. Look at the good we're doing in the community. And I really understood exactly where they were coming from. Right. So they used it as a vessel to actually show to be transparent and to show good practices and, you know, policing on their part. So I understood exactly where they were coming from.
Ken, can you stick around for another segment? Because I want to make sure that the Vans get a chance to ask. I want to actually press the Van and Oldham on the same question I had for Reddick about the mayor. What do you guys think? And at the end of your comments, I'll set up the show again, and we'll keep Ken around. But I mean, the thing is, I was an opponent of GT. I've been criticizing him for, you know, as long as he's been around, and all of a sudden last week I was like, good job, GT. So do you think I'm right on giving him that credit?
Well, I would say from a political standpoint, he did a fabulous job. From a constitutional standpoint, it was horrible. Because first off, while we have goods and bads with Tulsa, with Live PD, less so with the first 48, but Live PD I can't get through virtually without retching any particular show, because the number of constitutional violations are ridiculous. And even here in Tulsa, I love the fact that we are exposing them, but the problem is they are going unanswered and they're going unchallenged in the courts. I'm hoping for a mayor that will actually do his job and oversee the police department appropriately.
Okay, Van,
that has never been done.
Yeah,
Van, give me a minute and then we'll reset.
Yeah, no, Ken, I'm more interested in what's your team looking like? Are you getting some support out there? Have you got some people helping you get your message out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're getting a lot of good people reaching out to us. A couple college Republican clubs. So the youth and the young students in the area are reaching out. You know, it's kind of falling apart. A lot of them aren't on campus, but the more local ones from the two major campuses have reached out. And we've had a couple dozen volunteers reach out, and they're really excited. We were just waiting to really build up and be able to take off. I don't like that staggered takeoff. I want to implement, the entire marketing platform all at once.
I believe the Republican Men's Club has got an event going on Wednesday. Are you planning to be a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a Zoom event. And so when's the primary, the big showdown? When is that?
August 25th. If no one breaks 50 plus 1%, then the top two vote getters go to a runoff on the general election, November 3rd.
Okay. Now, so far there's you have filed. Who else has filed? Today's the first day, right?
I'm under the impression that it's only been myself and Mayor Bynum.
Oh, okay.
That's all I've seen.
Surprisingly.
I like the focus.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Valhalla. So
no, that's great, because that gives you a distinct advantage as a competitor, because
absolutely.
You can't be overshadowed or anything like that.
And just to put everybody at ease, Paul Tay is still serving a 9-month sentence, so we don't expect him in this race.
So more comments coming up, and we want to really thank Ken Reddick for coming out and showing us what he's going to do coming up next election season. But again, Tommy McKay here with 3D Politics Live right here on Facebook. I've always got David Van from SoonerPolitics.org, and of course David Oldham from ConstitutionalGrounds.com. And so, Ken, as we head into this next season, how can we, I will tell you, and I think I speak for both Davids here, and they'll tell me if I don't, but I mean, if there is a moment where you would like to join us, we do this every Monday. And okay. I can tell you that I already competed with GT and was unable to defeat him in the election. I'd like to help you compete. And so if you want to join us on this forum, we'd love to have you back anytime you want to update us on what's going on. But how would you have handled the mask situation? I was criticizing GT Bynum, suggesting that even if your opinion was you did agree with the CDC, I would still have come out and said my decision is this, and it just so happens to agree with the CDC. But I thought he looked like he was just bending over for the nationalists. So how would you handle if you're mayor? How would you have handled the mask situation that everybody got up about?
I think he could have done a lot better job of just educating the public without being so bitter about anyone that disagreed with him. So it seemed like anytime anyone disagreed or questioned his policies, I mean, it was like, challenging the gospel. So I would have just done a better job of educating the public, helping people stay aware, educating them on sanitary habits, safe distancing. I think we could have facilitated, as a large city, we could have facilitated a lot more help for small businesses instead of just moving into a 100% shutdown and lockdown.
Yeah, Van, what do you got?
Ken, I just got a 6-word primer for you with the educating and getting the word out. It's G.T. Bynum's made it very good. It's 6 words. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
He liked
kind
that
of,
phrase.
he used it during the floods last year. He's using it during the pandemics this year. And it's that using of shame and the condescension and the put down. You know, it's like, I live at 31st and Lewis and you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ken, anybody else got something for Ken before we pressed him pretty hard?
So the question is, would you have shut down Tulsa, or because, and that, as a constitutionalist, and if you know anything about me, that's what I'm all about, because that's what you're going to swear to, is to uphold the Constitution. So
absolutely,
the question is, what would you have done, and what do you see? Do you see his actions with COVID as constitutional?
No, I think he violated a lot of people's rights. You can't just come in and shut down. He doesn't have the right to shut down businesses or churches in the manner that he did. I mean, he killed the livelihood for a lot of families. So, or, you know, being able to provide, pay your bills. I mean, there for a while, there was about a 30-day shutdown for us. So that being said, I think he violated a lot of people's rights and liberties and freedoms.
And he may have the authority.
I'm now smiling because that's awesome.
It's like I said, a city should facilitate health and safety and regulations and education for its citizens. It should not treat them as prisoners inside of, you know, some kind of, you know, confinement, or, you know, this wasn't some, you know, concentration camp. And that's what we felt like. We felt like we were all being herded together, locked down. You know, police had their, you know, the soft hand on everything. But
Ken, one more time, I want to thank you for coming and joining us. I got one more question for you. One of my main issue as mayoral candidate in 2016 was my concept was to extend the lifespan of cyclical municipal regulations, licenses, fees, etc. Because if you are a person who's a hair cutter, you may pay a $25 license a year to cut hair. Well, if you would just simply extend that to double it to where $25 covers that barber for 2 years, it doesn't impact the city, because registration or licenses, fees, and registrations like that are only about 10% of the city budget. Yeah. And so, but when you take a business that's in the oil business that has vehicles and hazardous chemicals, etc., the licenses and fees and regulations are high. And so that makes a big deal to somebody who has vehicles that they have to re-register every year. And if just by simply extending the lifespan of the cyclical municipal regulations, that gives a boon to the small business and doesn't barely affect the city. So I want to hope that you'll think about that.
You're preaching to the choir. And I'm glad you brought that up. You're preaching to the choir on that one. I'm a tradesman, and I've spent a lot of hours in school, you know, building up my resume just to do what I do. So I know exactly what you're talking about, coming back and asking permission of the state every 12 months if I can still practice my skill, my trade skill. So yeah, you're right.
Okay, now I got to jump in.
Right.
We were almost had you out, Ken.
Well, I'm gonna make a statement and ask you to think about it, because I don't want to pin you down to something that other people will. But as a tradesman, and I'm a tradesman, and Dave's a tradesman,
and Tom.
Tom's a tradesman. But in my profession, there are parts of it have permits and licenses, and others don't. As a constitutionalist, I say any obstruction to liberty is a violation of our rights. And so therefore a permit or a licensure is a violation of rights. And I would ask you to think about that, because as a business license, hey, do I not have the right to do business? Do I not have the right to practice whatever occupation? Right. And I don't want to pin you down to that, but I want you to, I would hope you would think about it.
Well said.
As mayor, you know, it's going to be important.
The big piece is, Ken, if you win the election, you get a free 3D Politics t-shirt. So there's your goal.
Oh, there we go.
That's what you That's why you're running now. So when they
Yeah.
Hey, Ken Reddick, I really appreciate, first of all, your service as a candidate for mayor to bring your ideas and your effort to politics here in Tulsa. And thanks for joining the 3D Politics
Oh,
team
thank you.
here on Monday.
Thank
And again, I want to open the invitation. Anytime you want to talk, please just let us know. We'll bring you right in.
Okay.
Ken Reddick, once again, Tulsa mayoral candidate right here on 3D Politics. Thanks for joining us once again, Ken.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
There we go. Thanks, Ken. I had to find the button. Hey, that was really great. I appreciate him being here. That adds a lot to our show. A new up-and-coming star and somebody who's already got some experience looking over the books of the Tax Oversight Committee and finding out, wow,
I found that interesting that he got the interest to run once he saw the books. And I think that's important for everybody who might be listening, is once you see what's going on behind the scenes, behind the curtain of Oz, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, we got to do something.